Welcome to Conversations Through Alzheimer's. I'm Amber Marty.
And I'm Felicia Wood. We're sisters and daughters of Rosemary Marty, diagnosed with Alzheimer's in June of 2025.
We're documenting her journey as it happens, and we're sharing every resource we find along the way.
This is her story.
And ours. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Conversations Through Alzheimer's. Today we're going to be doing live update number 2. Before we dig into everything though, we're going to be talking about my mom's potential candidacy with the anti-amyloid therapies that are given through IV infusions that you may have heard us talk about in previous episodes. And I just want to preface that anything we talk about, we have done, with our own research and through our mom's neurologists and specialists. So if you're interested in any of these medications, please reach out to your own neurologist or do your own research. We are, as we always like to say, we are daughters, we are not doctors. So take everything we say as surface level research and do your own research.
Yeah, we're just giving our own experience, reflecting the conversations we've had along our mom's journey and our journey through her Alzheimer's diagnosis and journey, Alzheimer's journey. And so, yeah, well said. Just do your own consultation. This is purely anecdotal from our own experience.
Yes. So as you've heard in previous episodes, we've talked about my mom's neurologist that she saw last February, and she was the one that actually recommended seeing if my mom Rose was a potential candidate for either of these newer infusions. The first one's called lecanemab, and the second one is called donanemab. Those are the two medicines that they can give via the IV infusions. That basically what they do in layman's terms is go in through the IV, and over 6 to 18 months, depending on the medication that is in there and the amount of amyloid plaque in your brain, will remove some, if not all of that plaque, and then allow the brain to create new neurons in those pathways. What we've understood is it will not make things better. It will not reverse anything. We are not at that point in Alzheimer's research yet, but what they've said is it can provide up to a 20% slowness in the progression. So that is just a little bit of background. The reason why we needed to give you that background is because my mom has been going through and seeing if she's a candidate for this since I think beginning of April, maybe end of March of 2026, last month and a half.
It actually started at the neurologist appointment with the first blood draw for her genetic.
Oh yeah, because there's a lot of tests for this. It's not just you have Alzheimer's, let's get you started these drugs. The first thing that they tested for was are you a APOE-4 carrier. A lot of people may have heard of this, and if you've ever done 23andMe, it's an option to see if you are what APOE gene you have. There's two, APOE 2, 3, and 4. If you're APOE 2, that actually means your brain has an already protective layer from Alzheimer's. Doesn't mean you won't get it ever, but it automatically has a protective layer. 3 means it's neutral. You are neither pro-Alzheimer's or anti-Alzheimer's in terms of the biology in your brain of getting it. And then 4 means you're more predisposed to get it. It doesn't mean you will, but it means that you have to, or you should work at those brain healths a little bit more, make sure you're getting sleep and exercise and everything that we'll go over in a future episode.
Yeah, and the most important reason why all of the workups are required is because there are some pretty legitimate and significant side effects of either of these treatments. And so the entire genetic makeup, finding out the gene and finding out more about what's happening for her biologically with all of her levels, the diagnosis, all of that adds to the picture of if she would be a good candidate to potentially have less risks. And that's one of the biggest pieces of this journey. And one of the things that she had told us in that first appointment was, hey, these are newer. They were approved by the FDA a few years ago. They're, having some good success, but it's quite an intensive process. And so she had to start with the genetics counselor, and then she also had to meet with the clinic that actually does these infusions. It was a different doctor, and then that doctor had a lot more to say about what other pieces of the puzzle that she needed. For example, our mom had been diagnosed with the p-tau 217 test, but to be a candidate for these IV infusions, you actually had to have the lumbar puncture test done. And so that was going to be another kind of piece of the puzzle, was to go get the lumbar puncture. So since February, when we first met with the neurologist, we're recording this in early May. It's been quite an uptick in appointments and conversation around these IV infusions, watching videos as to what the side effects are. Like, there's been a lot of research and preparation. And while we give all this background, I will say it has been like a little part-time job in trying to understand and make sure that it's something that works for everyone. And I'll also say that not everyone in our family has agreed at all times about the approach and like if it's the right thing to do. I will say for most of us, like for myself, Amber, I think our aunt, and even my mom, like there's kind of been that, hey, if there's something that can help us or like take some of this away or help her to live a longer life and keep herself here, we want to do and explore any of those options. My dad, I think it's not that he doesn't feel that way, but he was kind of along the train of like, well, if these side effects are so bad, then why do that at all? I mean, how would you describe it?
The other thing he said was something he asked the specialist, we'll call her, I think she's also a neurologist, but she specializes in these infusions. She basically said the Alzheimer's patient doesn't know they're getting any better because like with all it. And then she made a really good point too, like you will never know how it would go if you didn't do the infusions. You can't make a carbon copy of somebody and say, this version of Rose did the infusion, this version of Rose didn't. And so I think Dad wanted like basically like he wanted it to say like she's gonna feel better, she's gonna know this, and he's like, well, she's not even gonna know the difference, then why would we go through? I mean, it's like we like depending on the drug, like you know, IVs multiple times a month, MRIs multiple times a month, like driving across town, like it is very intense. And like, as we'll discuss later, it's intense emotionally for especially the Alzheimer's patients and the caregivers and giving up all that time and the risks of everything that it comes with it. And so it's like, he was just trying to, I think, say like for only a 20% benefit that, you know, mom's not even going to see, is it worth it? And so he wasn't saying no, he was like, let's do the workup, let's do all these tests, but like, if she has a kid in it, like, let's really think about if we want to do this.
Yeah. And I will say, I mean, it's something that I don't think anyone can prepare you for the level of deep conversation and that you have to have as a family, especially regarding somebody else's life, because there are really big pros and cons, and it's a very personal decision, right? Some people are the kind of people that want to be on the cutting edge of medicine. And like, even if they do have side effects, like it's worth it for them to go through that process of trying. Other people are much more conservative. They don't want to have anything kind of near this. And you'll even find this with the different neurologists out there. You know, I think we've talked before about different neurologists and trying to find the right one for you. But like even this, you have to evaluate as part of your own workup, your own preferences. Some neurologists won't even give this to you as an option, while other ones will say, hey, it's my job to tell you what's out there and inform you of all of the risks. And then it's up to you to decide what's best for you. And so I think for us, we wanted to explore this as fully as possible, learning everything we could along the way. And it's been a journey because when we first talked to the doctor, it seemed like, okay, like let's just start taking this one appointment at a time. And I will say that as we started to lead up to the lumbar puncture, we started to notice that like, I would say that it seemed like all of the extra appointments were really starting to weigh on mom emotionally. And that was something that if you would have rewinded us to the first appointment with the doctor to say, hey, would you like to see if you're a candidate and you want to do this? We couldn't have known how that was going to impact our mom until we started to move our way through it. I mean, Amber, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about the week leading up to the appointment with the specialist and like having to watch the mom's experience with the videos and how you kind of helped guide her through that and things you noticed that week?
Yeah, so about a week before the appointment, they sent 2 videos, I think one for each medication, because you don't know that if you are eligible in the end, they will recommend which drug they think. Like some are better for women, some are better for different stages. I don't know exactly, but they give you both drugs. And then it basically is like a 45-minute episode about the side effects, which for anybody watching can be really scary. For if you, I mean, we'll briefly talk about it, but if you do your own research, like the biggest risk in these drugs is brain bleeding, which they do MRIs very frequently. It's not an issue like where anyone's died from it, like nothing like that. But of course, no one wants their brain to be bleeding. So it was basically a 45-minute video about how your brain could bleed from this and the different side effects, because it's their job as doctors for you to understand the risks and the benefits.
And again, just the warning, we're daughters, not doctors. The consequences are serious, but like you can't even access this therapy until you go through a lot of approvals, the workups to make sure that you would be a lesser effect. I just want to say that because it's probably easy for us to not get the information perfect when we're talking about who's had what kind of side effects. We're just sharing what we've learned along the way. Keep going.
Yeah. But to that point, like that's the original reason why they tested her for which APOE gene she had that first neurology appointment back in February, because if you are at APOE4, that does lean more towards maybe not the best candidate for these studies, because what they found in the studies is like those people may have more of a risk of a brain bleed. So after all of the tests, they actually the specialist doesn't even make the decision. She has to bring it to an entire brain board for them to make a decision. Like they do not take these things very lightly.
To that point, like you could want it all day long, but if the brain board says you're not a candidate, you don't get to proceed, because they have to make sure that you are a great candidate for the program. And there's a lot of things that could potentially rule you out. And so going back, so you were watching the video.
Yeah. So in hindsight, and this is something we've learned along the way, which we'll get into it later in this episode, I wish I would have watched it first and given her the highlights. Because what I did, because it got sent to her portal, and then she was like, how do I get into my portal? And so I had to like get on Zoom, like help her get into the portal. And I was like, all right, well, we're going to hang up on the phone. Let's both watch this, and I'll call you back in 45 minutes and we can, go over any questions you have. So we did that. And the entire time I was watching it, I was like, oh no, this is.
Yeah. And our dad was watching it with her.
Yeah, I didn't know that at the time, but yeah, that's good.
Found that out.
Yeah. So anyway, I called her immediately after, because I was like, I mean, for anybody watching this is scary stuff. And as not to my surprise, she was crying, very scared. And it's not that she didn't want to do it. She didn't say like, oh my God, I don't want to do this anymore. It's scary. Like anything that has risks is scary. And
well, I think it also brings up that feeling of like, I just wish I wasn't in this position.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I may not want to do it, but I also feel like it's my only path to potentially have, I don't know if a cure is the right word, but like some ability to kind of get some relief from how the trajectory, right? And so, yeah, I think that was a big thing for her, is like, she was just like, no, I still want to do it, but like, it's really, really scary. She kept talking about like, how the side effects are just so, I don't know if she used the word crazy or just like can be so bad. Like, and that was
that's all she clinged on to in the video. Like she didn't listen to like the benefits or anything like that. And I think
I even told her, because I mean, you kind of took the brunt of it right away, but I even said like, Mom, if you had to watch a video of every medication you've ever took, like you might feel differently about having taken those, and like you've been okay, Well,
I'm like, you have to think about, I tell her basically the same thing. I was like, if you listen to like Hulu or anything like that, it's like, Zikembe, I don't know, like, or Skynabi, I don't know, like, yeah. And then at the end, they always say like, you could die from this medication, blah, 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 blah. Like they speak it so quickly because they don't want people to hear that, but they legally have to. And this is basically just that slowed down. And I'm like, every medication out there is going to have a list.
If anything, this one is so much better because they care so much more about you.
You have to do MRIs, you have to do
way more safety infrastructure, way more doctors looking at your profile for that. Like, that's so much different than most, here's your prescription. Good luck. Go to the ER if you have a bad side effect. This is a totally different situation because it is serious. It's your brain. Yeah.
So she got scheduled for the lumbar puncture.
Well, she met with the doctor first, and that was interesting too, because we FaceTimed in for that appointment, and we had an interesting time with that one. Again, like anytime, I just want to highlight, like, we don't have to go into the specifics, but like, it's a journey when all four of us feel different ways about my mom's disease, and my dad is there in person, and we're trying to get information, and it can be really intense. And
exactly.
And I'll say she was she was pretty cutthroat. She was like, listen, like, if you even want to do this, like, you're going to have to get the lumbar puncture. There's going to be more genetics counseling. We got to make
More
sure you don't
blood
have a
tests.
mutation. And I think that we were also a little caught off guard because I thought we kind of, again, we didn't know, but I think we had thought that we were mostly to the place where we would be able to find out, only to then find out, oh no, there's a lot more we have to do. And for some reason, you know, because we were able to get the diagnosis through the blood test and not a lumbar puncture initially, I think our parents have kind of got in their head that a lumbar puncture would be really scary and really like last case scenario is to do a lumbar puncture. And so even that was like maybe a little bit higher stakes than it would have been to be like, okay, now I have to go have this procedure done. And as you'll find out, turned into kind of a whole situation too. So we had that meeting. Coming out of that meeting, I think, again, more appointments, more pressure, trying to find out more about this, continuing to see if you're a candidate. And so we had gotten her scheduled for the lumbar puncture.
Yeah. So, I mean, even the morning of the lumbar puncture, I got a call from Dad. I don't know if you ever knew this, Felicia. He was like, I just dropped your mom off, but because he was like, I'm trying to valet park the car because I don't know if they were running late or maybe valet parking is the only option. I have no idea. He was like, I'm trying to valet park the car, but I just dropped your mom off. So, I'm like, in my head, I'm like, why would you send an Alzheimer's patient to a brand new facility to go find it herself? He's like, but she doesn't know the doctor's name or where to go. So can you call her? And I'm like, granted, this is the middle of my work day, which thank God, like my work is flexible enough to like where I can answer a call and help her and stuff. But like, again,
it's really
another
scary.
time for another
That's
day.
scary.
But I'm like, why I can't this phone call?
You're like,
so I call mom.
again, that's a frustration. And like, again, in hindsight, it's like, if you're taking care of somebody with Alzheimer's, it's like, get there early enough to park together and stick together. Like have a buddy system. Like if you are second guessing whether you're beyond that part of your life, like yes, you are. You can no longer drop people off at the door. Like that's
exactly.
That's my opinion.
Yeah. So I called mom and she's like, I'm not lost. And she had no idea why Dad called me. She's like, it's fine. I know where I'm going. And then
then you wonder if she even means that because you don't
Yeah,
know.
exactly. So I was like, well, let's just stay on the phone, like, and I'll just, stay with you until you get there, just in case. And so, like, while I'm on the phone with her, I'm looking up on the portal because it said, like, they sent us a message, like, there's construction, you have to go to this building and this floor and follow these signs for neurology and all this stuff. And they obviously got there okay because she said, oh, Dad's calling me. I'm going to click over. And I said, okay, well, call me back. And then I never got a call back. But I was following them on Find My Friends. And I saw like, oh, it looks like their dots are together now. So that's great. But yeah, they did the procedure. They said everything went great. They even did the blood test there, which she was scheduled for like a couple days later. So I was glad they were able to get that all done. Everything went so great that, do we talk about this?
Yeah, we have to talk about it.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I think what you're about to hear is like lessons learned, like things that we are literally navigating this in real time. And while we knew the lumbar puncture was a serious procedure, it was also outpatient.
Yeah,
and
it's outpatient.
like we didn't know the
risks.
Well, we didn't think to look at like the aftercare instructions, right? Because of course my mom and dad got briefed and we were like, okay, like they'll tell us anything important. If you're the child of parents, let's just say don't assume that they're going to tell you what's important, because if we would have read the aftercare instructions, like things would have gone differently.
The next few days would go very differently.
Yeah. So go ahead and say what happened.
So they got home from the procedure. She was feeling great. So, my dad was wanting to go to his cabin. She said, go for it, which we've had a conversation since then that you can't listen to an Alzheimer's patient on their symptoms.
Well, we also said, like, in general, like, you have to wait 48 hours after a procedure has happened and after any symptoms are happening.
Yeah, which we'll get into that. But So anyway, he went to his cabin. She got progressively worse over the next couple days. I'm just mainly just saying she had a headache and every day get a little bit worse. Like the first day she was a lot more active than we realized she should be. Yeah. And so like by like Wednesday, we were like, you are on doctor
Rest.
slash daughter orders bed rest. Like, well, Uber eats you food, whatever you need, just stay laying down. And she did. She drank water, she laid down. Thursday, same thing, but she had an appointment on Zoom on Thursday, and she told me later that evening that she had to cut that appointment short. She had to tell that doctor, like, I'm sorry, I can't do this. I have to go lay down. I don't feel good. My head hurts. And we thought that was a little weird, but
We thought it was weird. We were also kind of frustrated that my dad wasn't there because we were like,
yeah.
she clearly needs somebody like monitoring her. Like this doesn't feel right. Something is off. But in the moment, these things are happening pretty quickly, and you're also like used to the world where like my mom can be self-sufficient, and she's actively saying like it's fine. I don't want your dad here, and if he wants to go be at the cabin, like she's advocating for herself, and so it's really hard from being far away to know where to push or what's okay or what's not okay, especially when it's already happening. So she went to bed early that night,
I
and then
called her
Friday.
the next day. Yeah, I called her around 10, I think it was 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And I FaceTimed her during my lunch. And she was like in the recliner chair. So she wasn't horizontally flat, but she was in the living room. And I could tell she like basically had tears in her eyes. And she just said like, oh, my head just hurts so bad. I can't even sit up. Like I couldn't eat this morning. I couldn't finish my eggs. I couldn't do anything. And I was like,
Something's
this seems really
wrong.
weird. And I didn't want to alarm her. So I was like, well, I'm going to do some research and I'll call you back. And the reason why I said that is because I was looking up her aftercare notes at that time to be like, did they mention anything that of like she should be drinking these things or doing any of these things? And that's when I saw in the aftercare notes that it said if you get a headache that gets progressively worse, you may need to go to the ER for a procedure called a blood patch. Yeah. And so
Because this
I,
is a known complication of a
yeah,
lumbar
that we
puncture.
had no idea about,
It's
that
called
they
a
both
spinal
apparently got
tap
briefed
headache.
on.
Yeah.
And so I immediately call Felicia because she is the number one person to call. She
Well, and it
she was
was
not
hard for me.
available.
So I mean, I won't even go into everything I was going through that day, but I was in a very big situation myself, and I had no idea, to be honest, that mom had been getting worse because again, it's not like we're at a place where like mom's texting me like, "Hey, I have a headache," or "I'm not feeling well." Like there's some broken communication that's happening. So I missed that call from Amber. And Amber had to kind of go down her list of like next steps because I didn't answer. She also texted me like, call me when you can, please. And I just knew the second I got that text, like, shoot, something is.
Well, it's the middle of a work day and like yeah.
But I think you called dad.
Dad.
Yeah, how did that go?
Well, sounded like he was in the middle of nowhere because all I could hear was wind. Hello, and I'm like, okay, yeah, your wife that you left 2 days ago, it's like having a problem and needs to go to the ER. Okay, well, call Linda. There's nothing I
His
could
her
do.
sister. Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's when I think I called you
yeah.
and I'll say, Amber, like when I answered, I was like, hey, what's going on? And she goes, I'm going to call you in with mom, merge. And then
Oh
you're
yeah,
like,
because I called
okay,
mom back and I had to
not
tell her
to
that
alarm you, Felicia, but to catch you up, mom has a very bad headache. It's gotten worse and she needs to go to the hospital. And I'm like, wait, what? What is going on? Meanwhile, what Amber and I do not know is that it's a blizzard in Denver as this is
the
happening.
one blizzard of
Like,
the entire year
yeah, exactly. It's
in
like
April.
pouring down rain.
Snow.
It's pouring down, it's snowing so bad, like visibility is really bad. And our aunt lives like 45 minutes away. It's not like she's a neighbor. And so I immediately kind of pivoted and was like, my best friend lives in the area. She's a paramedic. Like, I'm going to call her and see if she can pop over. And luckily, by the grace of God, like she was available. She could get over there. She
In like
drove
10
over.
minutes, they were on the way to the hospital.
Yeah. Well, I guess that she gave my mom, and maybe you want to talk a little bit about how mom was responding
Yeah.
because she was not
Yeah,
happy.
well, when I got off the phone with dad, and then I called Linda because dad said call Linda, and I called I called my Linda. I called my aunt. I said like, and like we text with my aunt all the time, but like she never gets a call from me, and so I'm sure she knew something was was wrong. And so I called her. I was like, I'm so sorry to call you in the middle of the day, short notice, but like my dad has decided to go to the cabin, and my mom needs to go to the ER. Like, is there any way? At first, I asked her to go pick up my mom, and I should have thought of Amber too, but that's our family friend, but like,
Yeah.
I just didn't even, when you're in like fight or flight, you're just like going down the list of caregivers. And so like and she said, like, I think she was annoyed with my dad too, because she was like, why would he leave? That is the question of the hour, but we have to move on from that question right now and focus on my mom. He's like, yes, I'll come. I'll be leaving in 5 minutes. And so she was like, I'm on the road. And that's when I called mom and I said, Mom, I don't want to alarm you, but you need to go to the hospital. And I hope mom never listens to this, but like, she was basically a child, like, like a child having a temper. No, I don't need to go. It's not that bad. Yeah, she was very scared. She was like, I just had a procedure 2 days ago, and she didn't
And she
understand
doesn't want to be a
why.
problem to anyone, right? Like, I think for her, she didn't understand that like, this is not something you just suffer through in order to get better. It's not like, oh,
it's not the
you have the
cold
flu and like it'll pass and like you'll be fine. It's like, no, you need a solution that can be done. That literally, as soon as you get your blood patch, you're gonna feel better. And
and I didn't
you
even know
have
that.
to go to the
That's
hospital to get that done. And I just don't think she quite understood that. So of course, even Amber said when she got there, she was like, listen, you've got two choices. You can leave here in an ambulance or you can leave here with me. Like, what do you choose?
Yeah.
Because she was feeling really, really sick. And ultimately, like, she ended up, I know this is a long story just about this, but you can tell it was kind of this whole thing was a big piece of my mom's overall journey. The increased complications, how our family was handling it, the toll it was taking on my mom. And so she did go, she got the blood patch, she felt a lot better. My dad came back up from the mountains, met her at the hospital, took her home. We had a lot of family meetings regarding next times and what we learned. We learned a lot. In fact, I said it earlier, but like, the new rule is like, after any kind of thing like this, you have to be with her for at least 48 hours after the symptoms subside. So like, if the headache would have gone away on Wednesday, then that 48 hours would have, and it's just to be cautious and to make sure that everybody is on the same page and that my mom is protected.
Yeah.
But I will say that caused some other kind of quick things that happened really fast, because the lumbar puncture was a really big deal for my mom, like, especially having that really severe headache and having to go to the hospital. Like, I will say, like, it wasn't just one of those things where like she could be like, oh, well, that happened, but I'm okay. Like, she was very fragile after that. Like, she didn't feel well. She, I think, had taken a big emotional toll on her. The next week we had the next hurdle, which was like another genetic counseling appointment, which was no longer for the APOE gene, but actually to rule out several genetic mutations that could not only, I think, have potential for side effects of the IV therapies, but also potentially, basically, they have to, especially for my mom, because she has early onset Alzheimer's, they have to make sure that like, it's not going to be progressing so fast that it would make doing this entire thing not worth it. We heard on the meeting from the genetic counselor, she was basically like, listen, like, we want to try to understand the reason that you are having early onset of this, because for most people, I mean, could just be luck of the draw. But if there's a genetic component that we can identify as connected to this, it might change the conversation around the IV therapy. And part of like the brain board needs to understand that as well. So we had quite a long meeting with her about the genetic impact and what are some of the things that could happen and what was the family history and all of these pieces of that. And you can just tell, like, even that was just weighing on mom, like the lumbar puncture, this conversation, she's thinking about having Alzheimer's, like she was just already like in a,
I think like
great spot.
They kept saying too, if your mom does have this, they don't think she will. And for the record, at the time of this recording, they're doing the test right now. We don't have the results from that yet.
Exactly.
But
we did have the test results from the lumbar puncture at that time, which we hadn't reviewed with her doctor yet, but we had looked at them and we had noticed that the information from the lumbar puncture was very helpful in conjunction with the p-tau test from last year. And her tau levels were pretty high.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to mention that I think the other reason why they are doing this genetic testing, why they wanted me and you on the call is because if she does have one of these very, very rare genes, there's a 50% chance that it would be passed on to me and you.
Genetic
So,
mutations.
yeah,
Yeah.
the genetic mutations. And so, like, I think that was also weighing on mom being like, am I going to give this to my kids and my grandkids and what's it for them? And I think it was just a lot
Exactly.
for her to handle.
It was,
But
which, oh, go ahead.
I was going to move on.
Well, I was going to say, so then right after we got, literally immediately after
Yeah,
we
I was
got
just
off
going to
that
say that.
call. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
so about, I don't know, 10 minutes after we got off that call, which was a while, and you could tell my mom was kind of overwhelmed, didn't really understand, using a lot of her brain power to recall. They asked a lot of family history questions. And, she's like, how old is my brother? It's just very hard for her. I mean, for an hour and thinking about all this stuff, it was just a lot. And then within 10 minutes, I get a call from a 303 number for Denver with, my mom's doctors and stuff. I always try to answer. And so I answered and she said, hi, this is the specialist calling. I have your mom on the other line. I wanted to go over the results of the lumbar puncture and everything. And I really thought it was going to be a super quick call because I thought it was gonna be like, hey, we got it back. Everything looks good. Cause we'd been getting in all of the blood tests and stuff. And we've been uploading it to our Claude project and saying tell us information. It's like, yeah, all this looks good. Everything is green light so far from what, Claude can see. Claude, again, it's AI, not a doctor. So we do not think it's a doctor, but it's a way for us to store the information and kind of process and everything. So anywho,
You're trying to understand it the best you can. So you're also thinking what questions do I need to ask? How
exactly.
do I need to process this?
Yeah. And so I thought it was going to be a pretty quick call. And so I was like, okay, great. And we tried to call Felicia in too, but she was already in another meeting at that time. And my dad had run some errands. So it was just me and my mom. And she started going through everything. She said, we got everything back. So what the doctor discussed with us was her recommendations based on the results. I was expecting her to say everything looks great. The next step is getting the genetics testing. I thought it was going to be a couple-minute call. It
And
turned
mom
into
thought the same thing,
Yeah,
right?
it turned into a 30-minute call of this doctor basically saying that the amount of tau in my mom's brain, and to be clear, wouldn't not make her a candidate, but basically the amount of that the IV medication would remove would basically have no effect to make it beneficial.
Yeah, she was citing studies, right? She was
Yeah,
saying,
because I asked her a bunch of questions. I was like, what is the margin? If it's a difference of a person with X level of tau, they remove that, it's up to 20%. Is it 18%, or are we talking 1%? And so she actually spent a lot of time going through finding the exact studies from the clinical research studies of the people that went through, and it was a smaller group of those people, but of the people that had about the amount of tau that my mom had, it was 0.5% difference,
yeah,
basically compared to the people with the
between the
placebo.
placebo.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep going because I do think that turned into a very intense conversation, and mom was on the phone, and then yeah.
Yeah, I was just asking a lot of questions. I was trying to think to myself, what would Felicia ask? I think I even told the doctor that. I was like, I'm just trying to think of questions I know my sister is going to have for me. And, both you and Linda always have tons of great questions. And I'm like, man, I should have thought of that. So I was just trying to resonate with you guys and be like, what would they ask? And so I was
You
asking
asked a lot of great questions.
yeah. And so I tried to ask a bunch of questions okay, if we did go forward at this, what would that look like? Or she, wait, I didn't say she's no longer a candidate, but, and I really should probably go back, and I should have gone back before this episode and looked up the questions because it feels like a long time ago now.
Notes, yeah.
But basically she said yeah, it's a 0.5% compared to the people with placebo. I'm not saying that you can't do it if you want to continue, still do the genetic testing.
In your notes, it said, I have not made my final recommendation.
Yeah. She's like, I'm just here to tell you guys, I'm not saying you're not a candidate anymore. But the problem was, that's basically what my mom heard. And in hindsight, I really wish I would have gotten that news and then said, okay, mom, why don't you get off the call? I'll call you when we're done and I'll give you a synopsis of what's happening.
Right,
because
I've got
I asked
more questions.
Oh, that was the thing, is I asked a lot of questions that I felt a little uncomfortable asking with mom on the line. Okay, with the high tau, does this change her prognosis? Do people with high tau decline quicker? Do they die quicker? And those were really hard to ask, but you don't get a neurologist on the phone very often. I wanted to get those, but in hindsight, I wish I would have told mom to get off the phone or given her that option. And then like afterwards call her and be like, oh, like here's the thing. We're still going through
Yeah,
this.
you were kind of in fight or flight, just going with it because you didn't know. And like, that's again, one of the reasons why we're doing this entire podcast to begin with, is because if you ever find yourself in that situation, like I think all of us in the moment, it's hard to slow down and think, okay, I'm about ready to ask this. What could the impact of that be on the person on this call? Like, is there any adjustments? And again, learning a lot, because that must have been really hard to ask that with mom on the phone call. And I think it was hard for mom because mom just heard my prognosis. She's not able to process it in the same way that you are, right? And so, yeah, mom heard was just
what mom was heard is, I'm not a candidate. I have Alzheimer's. There's something wrong with me. I'm gonna die.
Yeah,
because she did.
This is progressing quickly.
Yeah, exactly. She did, because the doctor did. I mean, just as if mom wasn't there, she answered everything honestly and basically said, like, there's, with people with early onset, like it basically reaches a cliff, and after that cliff it goes quickly. We don't know what that looks like. Every Alzheimer's patient is different, and she was clear when she said that too, but she's just saying, like, in the past, like, these are the patterns that we see. And so it was just really, I think, my mom heard things like that along with coming out of that genetics, like literally just coming out of the genetics call where her brain was already very fatigued and she was sad, and only a week after the lumbar puncture in the ER and dad leaving, like.
Well, I think it's really important. That's like one of the things that I think you and I had to talk a lot about as we processed all of this was, how would you feel if you were in that situation, right? Like if it was happening to you and you had what felt like a terminal disease, is that the word, terminal disease?
Yeah.
You would feel sad too. Right? You would cry too if it was happening to you. And
especially when you're so young.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that like I've just been myself, the word that I've been sitting with is like, this is grief. Every single piece of her reaction has been valid grief. And it's something that we have to remember as part of her care team. Like it's very easy for us to be action oriented and to take the information in and try to make quick, swift decisions. But like her grief for herself is different even than our grief for her. But well, let's take that to the next part of the conversation, because after that phone call, like I think you very quickly made a quick determination of what you thought was going to be the best next step. And then you had the responsibility of catching me up on what was said. Dad, trying to make it make sense to mom. And then we had to all process our own feelings about whether we move forward or not, whether we continue to move forward. And again, like you have to remember, like all of this happened in a very compressed part of the timeline. Like the lumbar puncture, the spinal tap, the blood patch, the genetics counseling, this news, it all kind of happened in this kind of really compressed timeline. And so walk us through like, what was your thinking? Because you had been very pro anti-amyloid therapy until you had that conversation.
I mean, I was definitely like disappointed. I mean, we had talked a lot. We've talked in many episodes before this about how we are having her be a candidate. Like we were really hoping that would give her we were hoping 3 to 5 years of still traveling and knowing all this stuff and being where she's at. And so like hearing that there's like, it's just so hard because like, and I feel bad really in hindsight that me especially, I don't know about you, like talked to mom many times and said like, no, like you should be so thankful that you are at an age in 2026 where these IV infusions exist. Like if you got this diagnosis 5 years ago, like you would have no options. And now we're basically saying you have no options. It doesn't matter that you're in 2026. And I think something to point out too is like we finally got her going to the Alzheimer's support groups for early onset. And the next day after finding out she, not that she wasn't a candidate, but that she wouldn't be the best candidate.
Yeah, this was actually like a point of contention for all of us, is like that phrase of like, mom's not a candidate. I had to be the one to be like, everybody stop. That's not what was said. The notes clearly say if she wanted to do it, she could. But the actual harder question is it worth it? Is it worth everything you're going to put into it and the risks that you're going to take on potentially if you're not going to get what you're trying to receive from it? that's a different conversation than I'm just not a candidate. And I had to kind of be the stickler with everyone to say, I know I can be very literal, and like, I know that's a harder distinction, but like, that's what we need to talk about it's our decision. Does she want to do it still despite the lower odds? And I think for all of us, like for you, like the answer was no. Like given everything I've seen, like the answer was no.
Not only that, but I think we have learned as a family that mom has gotten to a point where she's not resilient enough to even do, like, even if she was a candidate, we've noticed her going to any appointment that has has to do with her Alzheimer's in particular, where they're talking about her Alzheimer's, doing anything for her Alzheimer's. She is taking her weeks to bounce back from. Are we really going to have her go to these infusions and MRIs and stuff over and over, week after week, for potentially up to 18 months?
Well, that was my big thing with this entire conversation was, and again, there's no way to describe this. Like, you think that life is going to give you like these little hurdles and you're going to have time to reflect and like make an easy decision. And maybe that's some people's experience, but that was not our experience with this. Like, for us, all of a sudden, one day, kind of out of the blue, we're looking at the picture of what's just happened. And like, I'm just thinking of how she responded to the lumbar puncture and all of that. And I'm just thinking like, this is too much. Like, it is negatively affecting her to the point where like she's being more fatigued by the amount of appointments, the amount of mental and emotional strength she needs to have to even go through them. Like, this isn't making sense. And there are probably plenty of people out there who have different kinds of deficits with their Alzheimer's where that stuff doesn't matter as much to them, right? But for our mom, we didn't know how that would affect her, but we were seeing up close and personal that the amount of appointments, the amount of talking about the Alzheimer's and the toll it was taking on her was too much, to the point where you said it really well. Like, the word that just kept coming out to for me, and then that we talked about, was like resiliency. Like, she's just not, if she were a flower that were being trampled on during each of these appointments, she was still on the ground versus popping right back up. And that's not, again, if our mom ever listened to this, which hopefully she doesn't, but like, it's not a character flaw. It is not something you muscle your way through. Like, sometimes that's just the reality of your own situation. And I think it was really important for us as her daughters, as her care team, to really say, like, is this what's best for her? And I think we all really quickly realized that week, given the clinical trials, given the information, given her levels, given the situation, that it likely wasn't best. And then we had to let mom sit with that. And that was so hard.
That was so hard because she was so sad. And then she tried to do the right thing and go to the Alzheimer's Association support group the next day. And fortunately, I mean, good for these people, but unfortunately for her, she had to hear multiple people talk about how they're starting the infusions and how it's helping so much and how they're so excited. She was just so sad. And like, that was just the cherry on top.
She was. I think it was like really dark days. Like, the grief was extremely overwhelming. And again, it's like,
it's nothing we
just want to protect her. We just want to be like, don't go to the support group. Don't any of this. But like, I've had to kind of tell myself, as well as like all of us, like, it's okay. Like, sometimes in life, you're going to hear things that are not great, that make you feel sad. Like, it's part of this journey, and like, we're all in it together. And like, you know, mom, like, we love you and we're going to figure this out. And one of the most important things that the doctor said on the call was, you know, yeah, there's these anti-amyloid therapies, but you can see significant results in increasing your exercise and getting your heart rate up, in doing what's already good for your brain. And so the first thing we've been trying to do with our mom is just get the resiliency. Like, she's got to pop back up off the ground. Like, we were like, we need to lower the stress. We need to calm everything down. We need to get her feeling a lot better and be in a better mental spot. And then we need to start working on making her feel like she has agency in getting to the gym, trying a Zumba class, whatever that needs to look like, to the extent that she can make that happen. Like, we want to empower her with those things too.
She did tell me today she's starting to run with Bella. I
Oh,
told her that that's her dog. I told her that 10 seconds of running is not what the doctor
how's
meant.
she doing? Like, what do we have any idea like how far she's going or
Oh, I
anything?
told her that because I knew she wasn't going for a long time. She was like, "Oh, like I think she's thought like get your heart rate up and like you check the box." And I was like, "No, like that's like it's like 20 or 30 minutes of like prolonged staying at the heart rate." I was like, "That would be like." I told her like that's why you need to go to like the YMCA or the gym or something and just walk at an incline. That will get your heart up, but you don't have to like run
Fun.
and stuff. And she was like, "Well, I'm scared of the treadmill because like if you don't keep up with it, it'll go." And I'm like, "No, that's not. You're not running. You're just
Yeah.
walking at a slight incline." But she is thinking about it because it has been about what a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks since all that, and she is finally the last couple days starting to get back to herself. And it
And
took a
a friend
while, but
called her and asked her to do Zumba with her, so like
oh, I
maybe
didn't
she'll
know
do
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, that
See,
would be
this is
great.
why we talk.
So yeah, well, it's because she's gonna tell you that 10 times, but she'll never tell me that.
Well, I mean, I think that I don't know. Obviously, this was a long update, but it's been a really big part of the journey. We wanted to, and again, we're trying to document our journey so we remember it, I guess. But
Yeah.
also, like, I think there's a lot of takeaways we had, takeaways as caregivers regarding the conversations. And ultimately, like, we're just trying to figure out in lifetime, like, what's going to be best for my mom or your mom, our mom.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else you wanted to say in terms of where we are now?
Well, I guess the only last thing I was gonna say is, something me and Felicia have been considering is writing a note to her doctors saying, like, basically what we've seen of, like, anytime there's, like, an Alzheimer's related appointment, it's really hard for her to get back because she can't comprehend what is happening in those appointments. She is only hearing the negative things and sticking to that for weeks. Like, can we get on a call first to go over everything and then, or, I mean, I'm sure she's not the first patient like this. Do they have any like recommendations? Like they can send us a summary of everything in detail first, maybe through the portal, and then I don't know, but that's something we can
Yeah, I think
try and
that's
find
what I
out.
think the next step. I mean, I wanted to before I press send because I did have it all drafted for to send out, but I wanted to see how things went once she kind of came to terms with the new path forward, once she kind of restored a little bit, like to just make sure, see how she was doing with it. Because if it's only going to be, two
An
times a
appointment every six
year, like
months,
maybe
yeah.
it's not as big of a deal than like 8 appointments in a
Yeah.
6 weeks period. But to Amber's point, like I do think what I'm looking forward to is trying to ask them what are the best practices here because clearly it's like a very overwhelming process and like I'm a big advocate over like I don't want her to lose agency. I don't want her to feel like everyone's making decisions for her and like she doesn't have her independence or a say so in what's happening. But if it's going to be affecting her negatively, then like we need to figure out the way so that we can get our questions answered, but also take care of her. And so
Yeah,
we don't have an answer on that yet, but it's something we're going to be figuring out.
exactly. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We'd love to, if you have any feedback, if any part of this resonated with you, we'd love for you to give us a message, let us know what you're thinking. And then, of course, if this is helping you in any way, please feel free to share this episode, this podcast with other people that you know. And if you can leave us a review, that would also help us spread the word.
If this episode resonated with you, or if someone you love is navigating an Alzheimer's diagnosis, please know you don't have to fight it alone. The Alzheimer's Association is a free 24/7 resource available to anyone who needs their support. Whether you're newly diagnosed, deep in caregiving, or just trying to understand what comes next. You can reach them anytime at 1-800-272-3900. You can also reach them online at alz.org.